So what I'd like to show you now is how to use your AutoCAD floor plan to help you start that 3D model of your residential project. And in the process of starting that model, you can visualize it a little bit better. And then we can use some tools in SketchUp, some views to help us see what the elevations would look like and possibly even a section. I am using SketchUp Pro, the desktop version. I know that we started using the web-based version, but I'm switching over here now because the desktop version allows me to do this and the web-based version does not. I'm going to begin. I'm going to be using architectural inches as my template. So I'm going to click on architectural inches right now. That launches that template. And this is the desktop version of SketchUp. What I'd like to do before I continue, I like to come up here, top part of the screen, right next to the set of icons that are open. In this blank space, I go ahead and right click that. And I'd like to open what's called large tool set. And when I click on that, I have the tools that open on the side. A lot of the tools here are already shown in this tab at the top, but it's really helpful to have this along the side. Other tools that I'd like to open, I'll open styles, and I won't get to those until later. And I can bring that one over here and just place it right there. And there's a few more over time that I'll start opening up. What's really nice about the desktop version of SketchUp is that I can import a drawing file. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to click on File, and I'm going to come down here and click on Import. Anytime I see 3 dots, I know that means that a window is going to open up. So I click on it. From here, if I'm not already at my folder, I navigate to that folder and I open up the floor plan. And I click on it one time, shows me the preview, and then I can go ahead and click on import. But before I do that, I can also check on the options. I'm going to click on options here for a second, and there's nothing really that I need to change. It's already going to preserve the drawing origin, so I'm not going to touch that. And then for the units, I want to make sure that it's going to bring it in based on the model units of AutoCAD. So that's already set up fine. But I just wanted to show this to you so you're aware that there are some options available. Nothing to change here. I'll go ahead and just cancel this out. And I simply click on import. And when I import, it shows me how many AutoCAD entities were imported, how many were simplified, and it says AutoCAD entities ignored. There were 7 anonymous blocks, and that's okay. It's not going to be 100% perfect. So there might be some discrepancies here and there, and this is SketchUp just kind of giving us a bit of a log, what it has brought in and where it may have run into some errors. I'm going to click close now that I see the results. And when I do that, it's showing me my floor plan. I'm going to orbit. And you could see that it's brought it in more or less at that same origin point. But if you notice, I didn't quite set that origin to match up. So this point right here should actually be over, but it doesn't matter. It's not that important for what we're doing. So now when I click on any one of the lines here, you'll notice that it's all highlighted. And I want to use it to help me conceptually mass model my building here. Let me deselect it just by clicking off of it. And then over here, this instructor screen has been going, and I'm just going to collapse that. But feel free to use the instructor tool here. It's helpful. I'm simply going to collapse it right now. That way it doesn't distract. So from this point, I'm going to use my shift and then my wheel mouse and just pan this over and then zoom it out and then orbit just so I get a good view of it. There's information here that I don't need to see. For example, this furniture. And what I can do is I can come over here to the tags and I can expand that. And what AutoCAD refers to as layers, SketchUp refers to as tags. I do not need to see the furniture, so I'm going to turn that tag off. So anything that is associated with that A furniture layer in AutoCAD is now an A furniture tag here. I'm able to turn that off. And if I wanted to, I can turn everything off, but it's not necessary. I'll leave my walls on and my plan information on. And then something else, I don't know if you've noticed it yet, but those dashed lines, the hidden lines, they don't come in as hidden, and that's fine. I simply wanted to see my building, and it's a lot easier now to trace over this information. So I'm going to zoom out, and I know that my whole building is elevated 18 inches. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw rectangles and then let them overlap and start to delete some extra lines that are not needed. Here's what I mean by that. I'm going to come over here to draw a rectangle, and I'll start at this corner, and I'll take it all the way over to that corner. When I do that, you see it's generated that one space. I'm going to continue another rectangle from here to this endpoint, and then another rectangle from this endpoint over here. And just by doing that, I'm able to capture the entire floor plan, including the stairs and the decks. I'll go back to my select tool here, and this line, I don't need that anymore. So I simply highlight it, tap my delete key, and it goes away. I don't need this line either. So I click on that, tap the delete key, and it goes away. And I'm left with this footprint, if you will. And what I'd like to do is now pull this up the height of 18 inches. With it highlighted, I'm going to come over here to my push-pull tool, click on it, and hover over the surface, click on the surface, and then take that up a distance of 18 inches. So I'm going to type 18. And you see that in the text box over in the lower right-hand corner where it says distance. So 18 and enter. And I have basically drawn that entire floor. And now what I'll do is go back to my selection tool, and I'm going to triple click this and then right click it and make a group out of it. But now I don't see my floor plan, and that's going to be problematic. And now if I orbit underneath, I can see that it's there. What I'd like to do is actually move my floor plan up so that it's sitting on top of this surface. Go to the bottom like this, zoom in to a corner, make sure that nothing is selected. So I'm going to click off of my solid, the group there. So click off of it. And then under here, I'm simply going to pick any one of the lines that represents my floor plan. So I'll click on this line here. It selects the whole floor plan. That's what I wanted. Now I come over to my move tool, click on it, and I'm going to move my floor plan from the bottom, and I'll let that endpoint be selected. I'll click on it, and then I'll take it up. And now I can orbit this way and pick that endpoint like that. Go ahead and click on the select tool and then click anywhere on screen so that nothing is selected. Before I continue, I forgot to do one thing, and that was to save my project here. So let me go ahead and click on File and click on Save As, navigate to my directory and type in the file name, first initial, last name, and we'll refer to this one not as X-Plan because it's not a plan. If I call it a 3D model, that's being redundant because SketchUp is for 3D modeling. I'm going to refer to this as my, let's just call this one building. First initial, last name, building, and then go ahead and save that. And now from this point, I can begin to visualize the building itself. So I will ignore the decks for the time being. And it might be easier now for me to perhaps trace the floor plan. Here's what I'm going to do. And if you want, you're more than welcome to draw more rectangles. But for me, tracing it is just another way to show you how this is done. I'm going to start with my pencil, my line here, and I'm going to click on this endpoint. And notice how it's going to start to draw the line. So I want to make sure I click here on this endpoint and then just keep going around my building like this. If you need to, zoom in from time to time, zoom out, pan as needed. And then you have to remember where you started. I know I started here, so now I'm going to click. It has created that surface. I just can't see it right now. So I'm going back to my selection tool. I'm going to click here one time. And it has picked a surface there. You see how as I orbit around it, I kind of see that selection overlapping, playing tricks here with the graphics on screen. So I know I did this the right way. What I'd like to do now is actually be able to pull that surface up a certain height. I'm going to click off of it. I know it's there. If you were really, really interested in isolating it, you can go ahead and select that group. You can select the group like that, right click it, and hide it. And now you can see that it did generate the surface. And if you wanted to, you can go ahead and select the group, this drawing file that I was able to import. You can select that, right click it, and you can also hide that. And it simply leaves this footprint behind. And now from here, I can go ahead and pull this up. So I click on push pull, click on that surface, and I take it up. And I had suggested, right, inside, you want a ceiling height of at least 8 feet. So if I do that, then I need to take into consideration the roof structure, which is about a foot. So let's say this is going to be 9 feet. So I type 9 feet in the distance and enter. And then I'll go over here and click on my selection tool. This is the conceptual massing of my building. And I can start from here and I can start to think about what type of a roof I'd like to put on it. So think about it, consider it. You can go with a flat roof. You can do other things. And then if you wanted to, you can make certain areas taller or higher than other areas. So for example, this is my entry here. I can keep that a little bit lower. And I could say to myself, you know what? I want to draw a line and I'd like to take that line from this endpoint over straight back, line it up with the green axis or constrain it to green axis, click on it. And then I can go over to my push pull tool and I can click right here on this surface and maybe take it up an extra foot. So I can type in 1 foot and enter. So I can change that. I have an extra line over here, and that's okay. I'll simply come over to my erase tool and erase this. All right, so now that entry is a little bit lower than the rest of my building. And now I can think about this another way also. I can go, well, those are the bedrooms over here. So I can take a line and I can draw a line from this endpoint straight across over that way. And then I can pull this surface down and have it line up with that entry and just put it right there with that edge. So I'm just going to snap to that edge. And I have to turn this around a little bit so it picks that edge or that endpoint and click. And now I have another extra line over here, and I'll go ahead and erase that line. This is allowing me to visualize my building. What does it look like? And of course, I should triple click on it and then right click and make a group. That way, if I want to make modifications to it, all I have to do is double click it. I can edit and it doesn't affect anything else. So I'm going to click off of it. And now the items that I hid, I'm going to come up here to my edit menu. And then I'm going to hover over unhide. And I'm simply going to click on all. And now everything is back and I can visualize it. I can see it. And now I can see where the decks are located compared to my building. And now I'll go back, and now's a good time to address the stairs. And I had said that each one of these steps is a 6-inch down or 6-inch up, however you'd like to see that. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to double click on that surface. And now I'm focused on just my deck there, that level that is up 18 inches. And then if I wanted to, I can come up here to view. And when I go into component edit, I can hide the rest of my model. And that way I'm just focused on this part of my file. But I realized that I'd like to see the lines that represent the stairs. So I'm actually going to go back to view, component edit, and actually turn off hide rest of model, because I'd like to draw these 2 lines in there, and then I'll hide them. I'm going to draw a line, and I'm just tracing over it from here to there. Tap the escape key, and then continue drawing a line from here to there. And then tap the escape key. It doesn't look like it drew the line, but I'll check. So I'm going back to view, component edit, and I will hide the rest of the model. It did put the lines in there. I just couldn't see it. So now I'm going to continue, and I'm going to click on this endpoint, take it over, click right there, and then tap the escape key. And then I'll go to my selection tool. And now these are the steps that I'd like to push down. So now I'm going to start with this surface here. So I'm going to click on push pull. I'm going to take that surface down 6 inches. So I'll type 6 and enter. So I'm getting there, but this surface also needs to go down 6. So I'm going to click on that and move it down so it's in line with this surface. And I'll just go ahead and pick on edge. And then I'll come back to this surface and move that down 6 inches. So I'll type 6 and enter. And now I have my steps. And now what I can do is click on erase and erase this extra line that I don't need to see there. And you can see how the steps are in my surface here. And then go back to my select tool, click off of it. And now I see the rest of the building. This is the start of it. This is how I can conceptualize it. I can slowly begin to add the interior walls, but that'll come later. In fact, if you wanted to, just to get a sense of what's happening here, you can go ahead and double click on this group and then click on this surface and simply hit the delete key, and it'll delete that. And you'll be able to see inside of that space, and then click off of it. And you can start to see what it looks like, if that's what you'd like to do. I'll go ahead and undo. So I'll come up here to edit, undo, close, and that's the Alt backspace. And then I'll type Alt and then backspace again so that I can continue to undo. And I think that's about as far as I went. And now let's try this again. One more Alt backspace, and then I'll click off of it. So that gets me started. And by the way, I don't need to see that figure anymore. I'm going to select it and simply tap delete. But it was a good figure to have there because it gave us a good sense of proportion. So this is my building right now. If I use SketchUp as a visualization tool, this is what I mean by that. I'm going to, first of all, come up here to my camera. And instead of having it set to perspective, I want to switch over to parallel projection. What that means is that it's going to be more of an isometric view, isometric, axonometric. And now if I wanted to, I can rotate and give it more of a head-on view, but I will not be able to get this perfect. I'd like to be able to establish the views. So now is when I will come back up here to my menu. I'll right-click, and I'm going to turn on views. From here, I'm just going to take this over to the side, bring it down, let that align. There we go. And these are some preset views. They're default views. If I click on ISO, it's going to give me that isometric view. This one here is going to give me a top view. So if I click on it, this is what my building is looking like from the top down. This one here is the front view. And just know that the front view is the one where I'm standing down here towards the bottom, looking straight at my building. So if I click on front view, that's what I am going to see. Now, I don't get the sense of depth. And this is where with AutoCAD, I can certainly change the line weights, put information on different layers to establish the line weights, to establish that depth. But this is helping me visualize what's going to happen there. And look at, I can even see my stairs, what they're doing there from this view. So that's the front view. And then I can go over to the right view, which is going to be on this side. So I'll switch over to the right view. That's what it's looking like, the back view. And then I can go to the left view, which in our case is the view that is facing the street. And this is how I can begin to take my building, start to get a conceptual massing of it, and start to understand what it should look like in AutoCAD. And I can take the views here and let them assist me in generating elevations in my AutoCAD drawing. Now what I'm going to do is actually go back to my camera and switch it back to perspective. And when I do that, now I'm back to where I was before and I'm going to orbit. And by the way, in perspective view, I can still change it and I can have it give me a top view. But when I do that, I start to get that 1-point perspective effect. I can do the front view, but it's giving it to me in terms of a perspective. I don't want that. Just keep that in mind, but be mindful that whenever I want to see a true elevation, like an architectural elevation, I would come up to camera and I would set it to parallel projection. When I do that, then I get the effect that I need. Be mindful that when you're in the views like this, if you accidentally go to orbit like that, it's going to orbit on you. And it's just a matter of coming back here and clicking on the view and activating it. It's easy to zoom in and out. It doesn't change anything. When you go to pan, make sure you hold down that shift key so that it pans the drawing. But you don't want to orbit like this because then you lose that elevation. I'll go back to the camera. I'll set it to perspective and I'm going to zoom out. Now, let's say that I'd like to maybe go with a flat roof. Let me show you that example here. I'm going to double click on my group. I'm going to push pull. I'm going to type P and bring this up to the same height. I'll take this, move it up to the same height as well. And then if I want to erase the extra lines here and there. If I wanted to do a flat roof over here, what I can do is I can trace this surface. But I want to show you another way of doing it. I'll put the flat roof on here. I'm going to double click on this group like this. Then I'm going to double click on the surface that represents the top here like this. And notice how it selects all of that. So from here, what I'm going to do is come over to edit and I'm going to click on copy. So it has made a copy of that surface and those edges. And then I click off of it. Now I'm going to go back and click on edit and I'm going to select paste in place like this. It has placed that surface on there. How do I know? Because I'm going to click on this group that represents my building, right click it and hide it. And when I do that, it shows me that surface. Now that I have that surface, I'm going to zoom in here. Let's say I want that roof. I know it's a flat roof, but I just want it to overhang a little bit. What I'm going to do is use this tool over here called offset. And notice I've not made a group out of this yet. And that's okay because it's not touching anything. And if you wanted to kind of isolate that, let me click off of it. You can take the other objects again, just like I did before, select, right click, hide, select, right click, hide. And that way you don't have to look at them. And it maybe allows you to focus on just this one surface. So I click on offset and I just come near an edge. And as long as it tells me it's on an edge, I click on that edge. And then I bring it out. And the distance, whatever distance you would like it to have. In my case, if I want it to be small overhang, I might set it to 12 inches. So I'll type in 12 and enter. And now I need to give it the thickness. I need to give it the roof thickness. What I'll do now is go to my selection tool. That way nothing is selected. And now I'll go over to push pull. When I click on push pull, notice how I have two different edges. How do I keep that from not happening? Before I push pull, I'll go back to selection. I'll click on the line one time, and then I'm going to tap the delete key. And now I'll triple click. And notice how triple clicking selects all of the lines only, not the surface. And that's a little trick. You have to erase one of the lines first. So now that I have those selected, I tap the delete key and they're gone. If you wanted to, you could simply click on the erase tool here or erase tool there and simply just click on all of the different lines. And in my case, I'm just going to click and drag right here on this corner, pick them both, click and drag those two, click and drag these two. So that'll work also. All right, now that I have the roof, now I'll go ahead and type P to push pull that. I give it one click and I bring it up and I'll say 12 inches. So I'll type 12 and enter. And then I'll go to my select tool, triple click, right click, and make my group. And the reason I'm making my group now is because I'm about to turn everything else on. And I just want to proceed with this as one entity here. I'll go to edit, unhide, and I'll click on all. So now everything is there. So that's my flat roof. Now, let's say that I want my roof to actually extend over my entryway. What I'll do is I'll double click on the roof, and then I'll simply type P, and I will push pull this surface until it aligns with this edge. And then I'll click on my select tool, click off of my roof, and this is what it would look like. Maybe I'd like to extend this roof over my deck over here also. I double click on it, type P for push pull, let it select that face, and once it's highlighted, I click on it, and I'd like to bring it out. How far? I don't know how far. And this time while I'm in the command, let me go back and I'll go on to view, component edit, and I do not want to hide the rest of the model. That way it shows me the deck. And now I'd like to align to it by clicking on this endpoint. And while I'm doing that, I'm taking a look at it and the deck actually extends out a little bit farther. So I'm going to take this face, let it get highlighted, click on it, and bring it out so that it aligns with this endpoint. And now I have the roof right there. And I can do the same thing on this side. And in this case, I can either take this surface, click on it, bring it all the way out so it aligns with this edge, or I can pick the adjacent face, bring it out so it aligns with this edge. And I do have some extra lines in here, and I personally like to delete the lines that when I don't need them. So I'll do that right now. If that's the roof I'd like to go with, the less lines I have, the better. I'll take a look at my model. If you'd like to, that's how you can add a flat roof to it. So that's an example of a flat roof. Let me take that roof. Let me click on it, right click it, and hide it. Let's say you would like to do a different roof type. Let's say I'd like to put a gabled roof on my building. I can do a gabled roof, but what I would suggest is to keep the footprint rectangular. So if I go back to my example, my SketchUp model here, going with a rectangular footprint, what does that mean? It means that you want to eliminate all of these extra corners. What I'll do is I'll start to draw a line, and I'll draw a line, for example, let's say from this endpoint all the way across this way, say right about there, click, tap my escape key. I'll draw another line from here, take it over that way, just let it overlap, and that's fine. So now I have that endpoint established. And I know that this endpoint over here is all set. I can continue to draw lines, but in my case, once I've established that, I'm going to click on rectangle, and I'm going to go from this endpoint, and I'm going to take it over to that endpoint. That creates the surface I want. These two extra line segments, I'll click on erase, and I will erase those two segments right there. Now that I have that, I'll go back to my selection tool. I will select this group, right click it, and hide it, just so it's not interfering with what I'd like to do. And now that I have that rectangular shape, I will proceed to now give my roof a thickness here at the bottom. Let me do a push-pull on that, and I'll take it up, let's say 12 inches. So I'll type 12 and enter. And I see that I have an extra line, so I'm going to type E. That gives me the erase tool, zoom in and erase this right there. I'll look around, see if I have any more extra lines. And there's one right here, so I'll erase it. And now the next thing I'd like to do is draw a line down the midpoint to the other midpoint. Once I have that, I'm going to select my move tool, and I'd like to move the line. Notice if I hover, it might select the face on one side or the other, but I keep it right on the line here and it picks that edge. Once it highlights the edge, I can click on it and I'll take that up. And to make sure that it's going straight up, use the constraints. Use the up arrow key to force blue and take it up as high as you want. There is some geometry to think about when we do roofs. We always talk about the rise and run. It's a pitch of 8 to 12, 4 to 12, 5 to 12, things like that. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it right now. Just pick a height that you believe is appropriate for your design. As I look at this, as I move my line up and down, I can see the distance changing. So right about here, it's at about 4 feet. I can type in 4 feet, and that's the roof I would get. If I take it up a little bit higher, let's say right about there, that's about 6 feet. You decide what you'd like to do. I'm going to keep mine at 6 feet just to be a little different here. So I'll type 6 feet and enter. And now that I have that, if I go back and I take a look at the gabled roof, it's showing me that I should carry my ceiling up. So I need to fix this. So back to my example here. And just like I did an offset before, I'm about to do another offset now. I click on the offset tool. I click on this edge, or I let that edge highlight. Once it's highlighted and it tells me on edge, I click one time. I bring it in. Whatever distance you would like to bring it in is entirely up to you. Just make sure you go with a whole number. So right now I look at my distance and it's showing 8 inches. And that's a decent thickness to my roof. I can make it 6 inches, 4 inches, you decide. Let's say for me, I'm going to set it to 8 and then enter. Now that I've done that, I'm going to click on my line tool and I'm going to draw a line from here straight down there. Then I'm going to put a line here straight down onto that edge. And now I will erase this line. And then the last thing I'll do here is type P for push pull. Click on this surface and push it all the way back until it touches that edge and click. And that gives me the roof that I want, the gabled roof. Go to my selection tool, and I've been going to the edit dropdown, and I have hovered over unhide and I select all. You don't have to do that. You can also come over here to view. You can click on view hidden objects. So I click on hidden objects and it'll show me what is hidden. And then from here, I can select my building and then I can right click it and unhide that. I still have the other roof there. I kept it just so I can take a look at it later if needed. But now that I have taken care of that, I'll come back up to view and I will turn off hidden objects. And this is what the roof would look like. Now, You may want to do something a little different compared to mine. I just wanted to show you how to put a gable roof in there. And then over here, you notice how it's extending over. And I'd like to carry that roof out a little bit more. I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to type P, push pull, and bring it out and just have it line up with that edge. If all of that empty space, if you don't like it, that's okay. All I have to do is come in with a line and draw it from here over that way. And I've covered it up. And then I can do the same thing on the other side. Draw a line. I'm basically undoing what I just did. And it hides it. And then, of course, P for push pull. Hang on a second. Selection tool. Okay, it will select it. Great. So now I go to push pull. And I can take this surface out and maybe extend it, an extra foot maybe. So I type 1 foot. And I should have pulled this out as well. So I'll pull that out. And in reality, I should probably erase the lines here because I don't need them anymore. And that's what I can do. And bring it over this way. Erase. And erase. And I just want to double check down at the bottom. I still have some extra lines. Here's where using my visual styles is going to come in real handy. I'm going to turn on X-ray mode. And I want you to see that I do have some extra lines floating in there. It's something to keep in mind. So now I'm going to go back to erase, and I'm going to erase that line. This one, I don't need that line. And that should take care of it. There we go. And then I'll turn off X-ray and continue. And then I'll dock it back up here. I just wanted to bring that down to show it to you. Let's say, for example, you wanted a hip roof. We can take that gabled roof and I can turn it into a hip roof. I know that I brought the roof up 6 feet. So what I'll do is I'll select it. And by the way, I haven't made a group out of this yet. So let me do that. Let me triple click it to make a group. Right click, make group. And now if I double click it, now it's a group. I'm still seeing my other group and I'm okay with that. And now what I'd like to do is move this endpoint. So as long as it picks that endpoint, click on it. And whatever distance I brought it up, I'm going to click here and I'm going to take it back that same distance. But it's doing some really interesting things there. You see that? For some reason, there's some extra lines. Something's happening. Did I pick the endpoint? I should have drawn a line first like this. Now it's going to take that back properly. I will now pick my move tool, hover over this endpoint. And now when I take it back, and again, I'm taking it back the same distance that I used to take my roof up. So that would be 6 feet. So now when I take it back 6 feet, enter. Now it's doing exactly what I want it to do. I want to see what this looks like as an elevation. I'll go to my camera, I'll click on the camera menu, and I'll switch it to parallel projection. And now I'll come over here to my views, and I'll look at it from the front. And that's what it looks like. Front view, parallel projection. So your AutoCAD elevations will look like this. Of course, you still need windows, the door, and so on. But this helps you to visualize that roof and the different wall setbacks. There's more to follow. I will continue to model this building and show you what else I would do with it. If you can get a good solid start like I have here, let me go to my isometric view like this. Let me also pan it around in orbit. If you can get a nice solid start and conceptualize it like I did here and mass model it, you're going to be in good shape because then we can continue to add to it. Let me switch my camera back to perspective.